Alright everyone, welcome back to the channel. I am your host, the Ice Dragon, Rayron. We are coming with another manga spotlight. We've got Call of the Night Volume 1. Let's go and take a look at the back here and see what we've got. Alright, Nazuna is a vampire. That's okay with human Ko, he wants to be one too. But the transformation doesn't come that easily. One sleepless night, Ko slips out to walk the streets. Life after dark is a revelation. When flirtatious Nazuna invites Ko to spend the night at her place in an abandoned building, he's stoked. But when he awakens to kisses on his neck with a too much bite to them, it seems just the delicious taste of his blood that makes her meet him night after night for late night adventures, conversation, and naps, or something else. Then with a cute girl from Ko's past shows up and competes for his attention, his budding relationship with the undead is put to the test. Alright, it's produced by Viz Media. We've got Shonen Sundays and then rated T for older teens. $99.99 USA MSRP. So, talking non-spoilers. So this particular manga, it's interesting. Again, it's got a, it's, I don't even know how to describe it because it is unique in a way, but it's one of those that I can't really talk about right now in spoilers. So did I like this manga? I need to give it more time to develop. The characters seem unique. The world seems like it's its own character with everything happening in the night, which I think is interesting. And you got the stereotypical vampires and humans and so forth, but this has an interesting twist to the tale, and I think that's why I like it. But I need to read at least 2 more volumes to really see if I get engaged in the manga, because I think one of my biggest criticisms about this is that we don't know too much about the vampires and about the characters in here for me to really get hooked on it per se. But it's an interesting, if you're a big fan of vampires and humans and potentially a very interesting love dynamic situation, then this manga can be for you. Like I said, I need to read 2 more volumes to see if I'm really get into it. But with that, let's go ahead and talk about some spoilers. So with that, if you don't want to be spoiled, feel free to watch this video at a later time. So with that, we get introduced to our main characters here. We get introduced to Ko, which basically he's our human male character here. And he's not doing too hot at school. He's antisocial. He struggles with just the normalcy of social life. And we find him just lurking around in the dark. And from this perspective, I think it was really interesting to see that, you get the normal social norms of during the day, but then the city itself is completely different at night. And we get to see that through other people who have been drinking too much, how the streets are just abandoned and empty, and the only thing that you have is light pollution of the city. The illustrations are really well drawn, as the city is a character in itself, and I'm always a fan of the world being a character, and we definitely get to see that a lot in this manga. So with that, our main character Ko meets the female vampire Nazuna. And at first, Ko doesn't know exactly that she's a vampire, and so, he kind of just goes along with her. Nazuna pretty much describes the after dark lifestyle and everything. And then when she takes Ko to her place, Ko then gets a little more suspicious of, okay, what's going on? This is happening too quick. And so, at the middle of the night, then Nazuma basically reveals that when Ko was sleeping, she was able to, do the vampire thing and bite the neck, get the blood. You guys know how that goes. But then we kind of get the whole plot of the story, that Ko wants to be a vampire too. It seems interesting. He's excited for it. He wants to be a vampire. But in this particular world, in order to be a vampire, the way the author has kind of described it to us through the eyes of Nazuma, is that you got to fall in love with a vampire. And so we kind of have the plot of this entire volume 1, and maybe for the entire series as a whole. And so we kind of go into this montage of, okay, now we're starting to develop the chase. Nazuma doesn't want to, excuse me, Nazuna. I don't know why I put an M on that, but anyways, uh, Nazuna doesn't want to have a relationship with Ko. Ko wants to have a relationship, so that way he become a vampire. And so we start to see a montage of them, building rapport, um, seeing the abilities that Nazuna can do, and we get the character arcs of Nazuna a little bit. Not with a whole lot of backstory. Again, we're just developing the characters, and that's why I need to read 2 and 3 to see if I can get a little bit more of where they come from. Are there vampire clans, or there's really no antagonist per se yet. We're just a couple crazy characters trying to do their thing. And so as a montage kind of continues, then Ko gets how can I phrase this? Basically meets up with an old friend, Akira, because Ko wanted to keep close with Nozuna, and so he has these walkie-talkie communicators that he puts on his wrist, and he gave one to Nozuna so that way they can call each other and so forth. And long and behold, Akira also has a walkie-talkie because when Ko and Akira were kids, they were playmates as they were growing up, and then it's more of a plot convenience, I would say, that Ko leaves a watch on top of a mailbox. It happened to be that the mailbox on top or below where he put the watch was also the mailbox of Akira. And so that was a nice little plot convenience there in order to progress the story, but I digress. Um, Akira then, again, there's a lot of coincidences with the MacGuffin of the communicator of the watch because a lot of things had to go right in order for that meeting to occur again. So that's, again, another criticism that I have of this particular manga, that it relies a lot on this communicator to really keep the plot going. But anyways, Akira then meets up with Ko. They kind of have a little bit of a spark again because, they were old playmates. And then Nozuna kind of sees this, and so she gets upset by it. And we have another montage of Ko trying to talk with Nozuna. Nozuna doesn't want to deal with it. But then by the end of it, they settle their ways, and Ko kind of trips, falls, has blood coming out of his mouth, and then kind of a cheesy way of doing it, but Nozuna then kisses Ko, and Ko was saying, friends don't kiss that way, in telling that there are some flirtatious feelings that Nozuna has for Ko, and that pretty much ends the volume. So it is definitely unique. Again, the issue that I'm starting to have with some of these love stories is that sometimes they tend to drag on the montages of the quote-unquote chase, basically a person trying to chase after another person. It doesn't have to be male, female. It could be female, female, male, male, whatever. But they tend to drag on for a little too much because we see 2 epic montages of the so-called chase in this volume. Between the 2 different arcs, you had the first chase arc of knowing the characters, which is okay. The second one about the whole Nazuna being upset, it just wasn't for me. But again, kind of shows the drama between the 2. Again, we talk about how relationships form. You start to see how sometimes you got to give a little bit, you got to take a little bit, and that starts to form a lot in this volume. So very simple, straightforward, linear story. Basically have 2 people who meet, and you got potentially a relationship between these 2, but again, it's for not for the sake of love, it's more for the sake of being a vampire on Ko's perspective. And then as far as Nozuna, she has no love interest, and the way I kind of perceive her character is that, oh great, I got a great source of blood, and I can essentially, for lack of a better phrase, have a boy toy essentially that I can have unlimited amount of food from. And I'm curious to see where that goes, because right now it's not a relationship for the sake of love, it's a relationship for advantages, and that's what we see in this. So I'm really curious to see where this goes. So I do have volume 2 ready to read, and so we'll see what happens. But kind of also a side note that I forgot to mention, this particular volume is definitely one of the more harder ones to get a hold of. When I was trying to find this particular volume 1, it was definitely inflated a lot. I was lucky to get this, thank goodness for Facebook Marketplace, because I was able to get this at a discount. But a lot of the other places that I've been trying to find it, they've been selling for almost like $50. So I don't quite see why it's that expensive besides of supply and demand and so forth. And so if you want to get into the series, just be prepared. You're going to pay a little bit to get volume 1. All the other volumes are at the normal price. I've seen them in like Barnes& and Nobles and so forth and Amazon, but volume 1 is definitely a little bit more hard to come by. So, but with that, I do kind of like it. If you like the typical tropes of vampires and humans, I think this is another one that you can get into. So, with that, that's all I got to say about this volume. Again, I need a little bit more backstory to these characters and the world that they're building in order to really say if I like it or not. It was just different. That's my best conclusion of this. So, with that, if you have any manga suggestions, feel free to leave a comment down below. Like, comment, subscribe to the channel. If you like what I do here, feel free to look at the links down below. Support my work. Thank you guys for watching, and wing hugs to all, and to all a good night.